trout are somewhat like bass, you know, places where structure focuses them, like here's a good spot. It's called the Narrows. It's a place where it's real shallow over here, and you just have one deeper channel that comes through, and so it kind of focuses the current a little bit more in one spot. It'll kind of hold more fish. You know, trout are basically sight feeders. You know, they evolved in crystal clear water, and they can see everything that they're eating. Got a little bit of ripple on the water, which is good. If it's glassy calm and there's no ripple on the water or anything, the fishing can be tough, and it's the same way with trout fishing too, you know. Kind of the key is just really kind of enjoy it. You know, watch the fish fighting around and just take your time bringing them in. Don't get in a hurry bringing them in. If you're catching a lot of fish and you want to try to get them in and get another one, you think, well, this fish isn't I want to get one a little bigger than this fish, and so people try to get it in real quick. Not very good with the net, but basically you can let them flop around in the net, and then your hook comes out. That's kind of one of our average fish here, you know, pretty fish. No worse for the wear. He's a little bit smarter now than he was before I caught him. The main difference between, and the hardest thing for most people to get a grasp on, is fly fishing. You're basically using the weight of the line to cast your fly, where in other types of fishing you're using the weight of your lure or the weight of your sinker to cast out. So you have to kind of forget about your fly and think more about your line. The drag on a reel is built into the handle, so you need to realize that don't get in a hurry bringing in a fish. It's not like bass fishing where you hook a fish and reel it in. You're hooking a fish, and then when that fish is not pulling, you know, when it's not pulling, you're taking up line. Lake Taneycomo is a tailwater fishery. It's the outflow of another lake. Trout have to stay below 60 degrees. If they get much above 60 degrees, then they're just not going to live. It's just too warm for them. Always having a constant flow of cold water is what really, you know, allows the trout to do good in here. Kind of a good starting point, and like this is just a little jig I get from Lily's Landing, and it's just a natural colors, either greens, browns. I mean, there's times we catch them on pinks and yellows and, you know, other colors. Mostly the greens and browns are going to be your most productive. But this is probably a 1/80 ounce jig, but I'll take and pinch the barb down on them. That's kind of the first thing. That's kind of the first thing you want to do, is pinch the barb on them. If you use an indicator, you can see light bites a lot better. Like there was a bite there. So an indicator's just gonna show you a bite a lot easier. And two, to some extent, you can target a certain depth of water. Typically, I like to try to keep it off the bottom. I try to adjust where I have the boat positioned based upon the depth of the water. There's one. Are you on that? Pretty little fish. Main thing's enjoy the little ones just as much as you enjoy the big ones. Of course, the big one's a lot funner. The fish will roam around, and you may stop right in the school of fish, or you may have to, fish your way down to find a school of them. But a lot of times once you get into a school and get them fired up, they get to biting pretty good. So the good thing about trout over a bass is a bass may eat a brim a day, just one brim a day. Trout are eating little bitty bugs, so it's almost like they're eating grains of rice. And every day is different. Some days, there's days when they just want it dead sticked, like they just want it sitting there, Sometimes a retrieve makes a difference, sometimes, but it's like bass fishing. Look at it in a different light, Look at, a lot of people I think get hung up on fishing just as going out and how many fish did you catch today, and I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think and I believe fly fishing is to some extent fly fishing brings it out in people. It's not so much on just catching fish and what you're catching. It's about kind of the whole experience, the slow down. We hook a fish, we're not trying to get a fish. We're not trying to get a fish in and get it off and get another fish. We're trying to enjoy that fish. And just, if you enjoy that fish, you're not fighting the fish too hard, you're taking your time with it, and you're gonna get it in. That little one, little pretty one. That fish there is 2 years old. Probably two, maybe a little over 2 years old. If you want to fish a tailwater fishery, the basic things you're going to need. You need a fly rod. You're going to want to have somewhere between a 3 to 5 weight fly rod. But you just need a handful of flies. There's not a large number of forage in the tailwater systems. It's typically tailwater fisheries. The water's pretty clear, and so you're going to need to use fairly light tippet, within the 5 to 7 range on tippets. The standard, what everybody's been using for many years and caught thousands upon thousands of fish with, is an indicator rig. Basically a smaller indicator. Basically need a big enough indicator to be able to float your fly. As far as equipment goes, I'm using a Sage. It's a 2230 reel. One thing I would suggest with your reel is that you buy a reel that you can take the line up with by reeling it with your fingers like this. Fly reels are a 1-to-1 retrieve, meaning I turn the handle one time, I get 1 revolution. I've got a Sage foundation rod here. This foundation it's a combination which the rod and reel come together. As far as your fly line, I use a Rio fly line, and I use a weight forward floating line. So I have a 4-weight rod, and you want to match that with a 4-weight line. The leader is from your fly line basically out to your tippet. So Most of them have a loop-to-loop leader, and I'm using a relatively short leader. My leader's only about 3 foot long. So starting out, I would say keep your leader short. I keep my leader short to make it easier to cast. One thing that I would suggest is get to know your local suppliers. You know, here on Taneycomo, we're really lucky. We've got Lily's Landing here. And hiring a guide really sets you so far ahead. You know, you can come out here and beat yourself to death and not figure out the little tricks that you need to know by not hiring a guide. Yeah, I started out as a bass fisherman, and that was my passion. I spent many years chasing like the FLW and BASS tours, and won the FLW Classic. That was kind of the highlight of my career. You know, I got to where I couldn't wait to get home from bass fishing to go fly fishing. You know, really how it's easy. It's easy. It's not something that, you can catch a lot of fish wading. You don't even have to have a boat. What one bass lure costs nowadays, you can buy a bunch of flies. It's a lot less expensive.